When we started our deconstruction journey, Chelsea and I both expanded our knowledge and our worldview by reading books and following social media accounts of people like Dante Stewart, people like Nadia Boltz-Weber, Sarah Bessey, and Rachel Held Evans.
And even though Rachel Held Evans has passed, she started a conference in Minneapolis called the Evolving Faith Conference. It's a conference that Brandon and I would love to attend.
Definitely.
It would be a dream to be there. This conference is in October, and Brandon and I did the budget, and it looks like it'll be about $1,100 for us to go.
We've started this podcast, and we do it on our own, and we do it for you guys. We have some sponsors, but we really need your help with this.
Yeah, and so we've done the math, and we figured that if every one of our listeners just gives $8, then we could go to this conference for ourselves and for you. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that we could do it if we do it all together. So you'll find information in the link of our bio in this video for the next couple of episodes in our podcast so that you know how you can help us get to the Evolving Faith Conference.
Thank you in advance for the way that you help us.
We love you, Dropouts.
Hey, I'm Brandon.
Hey, I'm Chelsea.
And this is the Religious Dropouts podcast.
The best podcast you ever... Oh, it's just not yet.
The internet's favorite podcast.
Someday it will be. You know what I'm saying? When you wish upon a star.
The best podcast you never heard of.
The podcast your parents wish you weren't listening to.
That's right.
Hey. Anyways, guys, let's get started with some life updates.
Yeah.
We are excited to be with you tonight. It's going to be a fun night. We've got actually a fun episode because we had a lot of people that left us voicemails, some people that sent us in messages, some stories. So we'll be excited to share that with you. But before we dive into that, Brandon, what's been going on?
Oh,
life update. Shocking.
I've been working. Gosh, I unpack a box or two. I work.
I love that.
I work on a podcast.
Awesome. Which one? Maybe we could check it out sometime.
You know what? It's the worst podcast on the internet. It's called
Religious Dropouts. Weird. I've heard of that.
What's up with your world?
I am really fully recovered from surgery, 3 months out now. And almost, I think, somewhere around there. And it's been amazing. I am back in the gym almost every single day. And just feeling really good. So I'm really excited about that. So
I actually have a life update.
I hate you. I just already hate it. Go ahead.
We took Rory to the Imagination Station today.
Oh, can we put the picture in the video, Alicia?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go. We'll ask our tech director.
And I just had a lot of fun. It was fun to just hang out with Rory in a space that she loves. And Imagination Station is like this cool little thing.
In downtown Toledo. Yeah. It was so fun. So that was really cool. We went to Oaks this morning, saw some of our homies. And Oaks is the homeless shelter in Monroe, Michigan. Yeah. I always love take Brandon to work day. So we did that this morning. Love that. So cool.
Always an adventure there.
Adventure's one way to put it. So yep, absolutely. It's really something. So we're going to get started with, we asked you guys, it was not last episode. It was a couple episodes ago, but we wanted to give you guys time to like share your stories. And so we kind of just asked if anyone felt comfortable to share, like what was their reasoning for leaving the church? Or like, what was their final straw, right? Like what really got them to leave? But also the other part of that question was if maybe you didn't want to share why you left, could you share how the church influenced or worked with you in your deconstruction?
Yeah.
Like how they react, how they respond.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, I know you have a story. I don't know if we want to kind of lead in with that first story that was sent in.
I think so. She says, so I was going to call, but every time I go through what I want to say, I can't do it without getting upset. She said, my final straw that caused me to leave the church was just having enough of watching the lead pastor try to bully his congregation into submission. I'd watch him choose sides in divorce and publicly criticize shame the side he didn't agree with. Watched him force people to get married because he decided they were living in sin. Threatened people with losing their positions in ministry because they wouldn't sign a waiver. Promising to live life to a specific guideline, along with finally being done with his harassment on social media because we have very opposing beliefs on social injustices. Since leaving in November, I've only remained in contact with one person from the church that holds the same beliefs that I do, but she isn't as outspoken about it. I've been removed on social media, ignored in public, basically just gotten the coldest shoulder I could have ever imagined from people that I'd known my whole life. as I'd been a part of that congregation from 5 years old until I left at 26.
Wow.
I know that feels a little similar to my life. That pastor's motto has always been "Come as you are," but apparently that only applies to the way you dress, because if you think or live any differently than him, you're no longer welcome.
We could stop the episode. We could cancel everything else we have the rest of the episode, and I could unpack this message
Oh, I know.
with just the tomfoolery.
Yeah.
No fucking way. No way that you went to this church your whole life, and because you have an opposing viewpoint, like what level of Christian are you? There's no way that you think that's the Bible.
What do you mean, no way? Like, I live
so
that
shocking.
daily.
You do, Brandon. You do. But people will use a situation that you went through, like they have a reason to you.
Well, it's
not
on me.
just that you're
it's on
different.
me every time.
Right,
Yeah,
100%. It's your fault. It's your fault.
It's my fault.
I just think I maybe I'm naive, but it is so hard for me to believe that this really happens. Like, we get these stories all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way that there's this many churches out there that are such pieces of shit that really believe that's what the gospel says.
Yeah.
Like, how do you read the Bible and then really believe that that's how you treat someone, even if you don't agree with them or don't want them to come to your church anymore? You would ostracize them and like block them on. So I just, God, it's just so gut wrenching.
It's wild too, because it's not the same as eating out for dinner where you've gone to hundreds of places in your life. All these people have been to maybe 1 to 3 churches in their entire life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my thing
is,
there has to be a systemic issue or systemic posture that we keep passing along as church leaders. And I don't necessarily know how to fix that, but my brain wants to.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess I just want to say real quick that I'm just sorry. I read all that and then I went into kind of how it made me feel, but I am really sorry for that. That's how your experience was.
Right after, I think I took 10 seconds to breathe before you, as you finished reading, before I said that. Cause it's really shocking and it's really sad. And for the person that sent us in this story, I'm so thankful that you saw it. That's the one thing I can tell you, is that God has your back. Mm-hmm. When they didn't, God does. And what you will find is, you will find more community and more people of Christ getting out of that church of Satan, which we're going to talk about in just a second, ironically, with a really funny story we can't wait to tell you. But genuinely, you will find so much more hope and joy and Jesus outside of ministries and churches that would ever make you feel that way. Like, there's just nothing more anti-Christ than that type of position as a church.
Yeah.
It's just so sad. So,
yeah.
Maybe you should look into the Church of Satan, because apparently that is the Religious Dropouts. Brandon, we need to take a detour on this podcast to tell you this story.
We haven't said this on the podcast.
No.
But we have live streamed and talked about this when it happened. But we wanted to share the story because we were reminded at dinner tonight that this just kills us, this story.
Yeah.
So we were probably like 2 episodes in, probably only 2. And I got a notification on our email, our religiousdropouts@gmail.com. That's the email you send if you would wish to sponsor our podcasts.
not the one you hack, but keep going. Keep going.
But we got a notification that somebody was building a Wix site and they used our email, which a genius move.
But first what happened is Brandon texted me, and I think I was teaching at the gym or something. Like, I wasn't available.
Are you creating a website?
And he's like, are you using the email? And then 5 seconds later, are you creating a website? And I'm just like, I barely know how to speak into the mic, let alone like you I don't even know the password to our Gmail, even though you said it to me 4 times, So anyway, okay, keep going.
So because they used our email, I am like, no, like, Wix, we're not trying to create an email right now, but like, let me get into this. I recovered the password. And like, once I recovered the password, I like changed the account questions, security questions, all that. Tried to figure out the best I can, like, who was in on this. And I mean, they didn't leave any details like that, no breadcrumbs, but
unfortunately,
I think they did pay to have somebody like quickly design this website.
Yes.
Because there was a chat that showed like a transaction,
a receipt.
Yeah. Of like $20 or something like that.
Yeah.
and they should have got some better quality output for
I
what
agree.
they gave for $20.
Or more sneaky kind, like how
Yes,
it was
I
so
know.
easy to find. Anyway, keep going.
But what they did was maybe they built it and thought religious dropouts at Gmail wasn't taken.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
And then they tried to build the email on the backside.
I
and then they
absolutely think
realized
so too. Yep,
it's taken.
Because they did try to get into the email. We got alerts that they were trying to get into the email.
Yeah.
So it's Gmail afterwards.
Yep.
So I mean, I think they figured that out too late. But
so we go to the website they were building.
Because it's
you
live.
can tell they're trying. Yeah, you can tell they're trying to build our brand like with some pinks or some purples or something.
Yep. Our exact bio from our Spotify.
Our exact bio, the name, and then it says click here to learn more. Click here to learn more about the dropouts or something like that. And then I click the button and it takes you to a website, the official website for the Church of Satan.
The official one. Yep.
Maybe.
Hilarious.
churchofsatan.com or something.
Hilarious.
.org.
It was the best. You know what I thought was so great about it is, can you imagine what you have to mean to somebody for them to take the time to hack into your, or to create, not hack, I'm sorry, attempt to hack into your email, use your email to create a fake website that takes you to the Church of Satan. The time that took that person and the energy expelled from them to do that. It made me feel good. It really did.
It's a good laugh.
It is.
They have no idea the amount of endorphins we got.
Oh my, we were laughing when we figured out
what
a
blessing.
It was.
Thank you.
Yeah,
honestly, it's been it's been too long since someone's made a fake website for our
So if that was
podcast.
you, it's time to number 2. religiousdropouts2.com. Okay.
We can be entertained again, so please send us something.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. Voicemail number 1.
Hey, Religious Dropouts. This is Tom Arthur, pastor of Sycamore Creek, longtime listener, first-time caller. Thought I'd answer the question you just posted on the Dropouts and Delinquents Facebook group about how your church responded when you started to deconstruct your faith. I grew up in a pretty conservative setting, fundamentalist, even ended up going to Wheaton College and then marrying into the United Methodist Church, at which point I'm starting to ask a lot of questions. And the first part of my own deconstruction was letting go of inerrancy. And while I was actually on staff at United Methodist Church, which gave me a lot of resources for rethinking my faith, I was interacting one day with a guest speaker in the area who was much more conservative than me from the Christian tradition, the Thomas Campbell. Anyway, I was telling him about my struggle with inerrancy, and he said, "Hey, if that doesn't help you, follow Jesus and let it go." And I did. So it was actually somebody who was more conservative than me, significantly, than the denomination I was in at the time, which was very supportive, that helped me begin to let go of something that didn't work for me anymore. Love you guys. Love this community you're building and supporting it in whatever way I can.
Yeah, I love that. Pastor Tom has been a real blessing to our podcast. Like that story is a real blessing because you have a denomination, Tom, that allowed you to ask questions.
Absolutely.
And like that's the base level. Like what I could wish for anybody is that their church setting allows them to ask questions.
Yeah,
because so many times those questions is what leads to their exile. Like you ask the wrong two, you're done.
And speaking of churches that are open to your questions, I would think the very church that Tom probably pastors is one of those churches. Yeah. And we're really blessed because they're one of our sponsors. Yeah. So please just give a quick listen to this ad. We're so thankful for Sycamore Creek and all that they do for us.
Yep.
It is an insane blessing and privilege to have Sycamore Creek Church as one of our sponsors on the Religious Dropouts podcast. When we launched this podcast, we never imagined accepting a church sponsorship. But this church really does just hit different. The community of people really do believe in Jesus and justice. They're also LGBTQ plus affirming, which means that all are included and welcome, no matter who we love. They put action and effort into working for racial equity, and they deeply care about being multiculturally curious, creative, and compassionate.
If there was a church the Religious Dropouts could preach a live sermon or podcast at, this would so be it. If church isn't for you, please ignore this ad. But if you are curious about what the body of Christ looks like, this Jesus-loving congregation is located in Lansing, Michigan, and is launching a campus in the Eastwood area on October 1st. Tell Pastor Tom that Brandon and Chelsea said hey.
One of the things that I think was really cool about Pastor Tom's message is he talked about the concept of like biblical inerrancy and how he really struggled. One of my favorite things about the Nazarene Church, where Brandon and I used to minister in, is they don't believe that the Bible is word for word true, in the sense of if you believe that Jonah was really swallowed by a big fish, then that is good for you. But if you don't, if you struggle with that story and you wonder maybe what was God trying to say in that story, like what was happening to Jonah, what was the tension? Maybe it wasn't actually a big fish, right? It wasn't literal. There's room except for things pertaining to salvation. So like, we believe that Jesus rose from the dead. We believe that Jesus died for your sin, those kind of things. But
Yeah.
as far as all these random parts of the scriptures that are very important that we love, it wasn't important for you to believe that literally. And it gave people in the Nazarene Church a lot of freedom. If they struggled with some of those stories, you could still be a Christian, you could still believe in the Bible, and you could still come to church, but you didn't have to believe the Bible literally, right? So,
and that's what leads to that weird thing where he said he grew up
very
really fundamentalist.
Yes. Yep.
Where that means
they believe literally
end to end, cover to cover.
Yep.
If one thing's wrong, it's all wrong.
Exactly.
And so they can't allow one thing to be wrong.
Yeah,
they don't have a clearance for that.
Exactly. And he had no room for questions, right? Because the second you say, well, was Jonah really swallowed by, then you're immediately cast aside, right? So I just think that was a really cool call, because it was
Cain and Abel have to reproduce with?
Right. So I just think it was cool because it provided not only a pastoral perspective, like what he kind of went through as he was deconstructing or kind of rebuilding what he knew about his faith, but I also think it's cool because it gives you a good perspective on a concept in a lot of churches that people do really wrestle with, that biblical inerrancy, and that is the Bible actually literal in all facets, and neither of us believe that that's true. So I just think that's cool. We're going to play one more for you, and then we have a story to read, and then we have one more voicemail. So we're just going to kind of keep on this train of listening to you and your stories.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brandon and Chelsea, it's Cammie. I saw your post today asking to comment like what your last straw was with the church or why you left. And it's really stuck out to me because mine was after the most recent election, sometime in 2021. The pastor stood up on stage and made a comment about how if you voted for Joe Biden, you aren't welcome in church and aren't welcome in heaven. And that really, I don't think I ever stepped foot in that church again. So that's my final straw. There was a ton leading up to it, but I just thought that would be a fun tidbit to share. Yep. That's all. You guys are doing great on this podcast. I love listening every week. Bye.
Imagine a pastor speaking on behalf of his church and saying, you're not welcome here, but you also aren't welcome in heaven if you voted for the wrong political candidate.
Imagine a pastor who is a church is a 501c3. Imagine them speaking on political things, which is actually illegal. Like they could lose their 501c3 status for talking about politics like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if like the denomination ever gave repercussion towards that church, or
it would be interesting to know if anyone ever filed with the IRS a complaint that a church was doing that.
It'd be interesting to know how far a church could go
Cammie,
without repercussion.
Cammie, thank you so much for your call. Thank you so much for your call. And all laughs aside, the text message that I actually sent back to her was, thank you for sharing. And I'm so thankful that you left that church behind. And it's like the same story. It's like the same thank you we just gave to that last message or not Tom, but the one before that we read. It's like people stay in these organizations for so long, not having a clue what like that they're really in the world's most toxic environment. Like they have
Yeah.
no idea. So I'm just so thankful that you identified that you were in that environment and got the hell out.
And sometimes it's so sneaky.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Like you don't know what to do with your feelings when you have something as high contrast as that kind of language.
Yeah.
Because the church, I can imagine, has done somewhat of work to win over somebody like that.
Definitely.
And then when you hear something like that, that instantly like divides your congregation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instantly says, whatever you just voted for, there's no room in heaven for you.
Yeah.
Wild.
And also,
and then you have to sit with that feeling of like,
yeah,
I'm gonna mourn my faith community right now,
in this
starting
moment.
now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, like, to that pastor, like, your God be real shit. Like, I don't know how else to say that. I'm sorry, my grammar wasn't super great there, but like, if you really believe that the God you preach about and serve is not sending people to heaven over a political vote, bro, your God is Stuart Little. You know what I'm saying? Like, he is drowning in a washing machine. Like, I don't want to, like, that's just, I can't. It's so crazy. It's crazy.
Furthermore, your God's not ours. And if you could stop speaking on his behalf, that'd be really great.
I've asked that, I think, before. But anyway, so the next story we have actually is from somebody who sent us in another story similar to what Brandon had just read. So I'm going to read this story real quick. And it just says, I don't remember my final straw, but I do remember the catalyst that started me on my journey. It was when someone asked me if I thought God would actually send me to hell for simply entertaining the idea that gay people may not be living in sin. Not believing that, but simply just thinking about it. That started it. Now I am a bisexual, polyamorous, divorced mom of 2 and finding myself more and more every day. Queen, you do you, boo. And what I'll say to that first is that I feel like I had a lot of students when I was in youth ministry that's parents or other ministers or almost like Sunday school teachers or something would ask them this question, like, what do you think? Like they would suggest things like just thinking that being gay might be okay would send you to hell. Not even supporting it or agree, just the fact that you would think about it,
right?
You are immediately going to hell.
Yeah.
So just imagine that type of theology and that type of like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you for it seems like your bravery to daily, like you said, find yourself, discover yourself. I think that's the journey we all go on.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I'd like to say, you know, that thing on the internet where it's like people say that you've changed, and then it's like,
I know
we're
exactly
supposed
what you're
to.
Saying. Yeah. Yep.
I feel like Christians
or thank you
are. Oh yeah. Thank you is good.
Love it.
I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But I know people have been like, Brandon, you've changed.
No one's ever said that about me. Weird.
You're not the person you used to be.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And they'll use it as a dig.
Yeah.
And it's just like, thank God I'm not.
They don't know.
Right.
That it's a benchmark to remind myself.
Yep.
I'm growing and I am not who I was, and thank God.
And if you really do read the Bible, if you really do have a relationship with God, then you know that God calls you to always grow.
Yeah.
That literally scripture calls you to be always growing in your faith and always be growing with people and your understanding of people, your love of humanity, your growth in scripture. So it's very concerning to me if you've held the same views and if you've held the same position, the same views, you've been the same person the whole time that you've been walking this journey with Christ. I would feel concerned about that. That'd be a really hard conversation that I would have with someone about what is God really doing in your life then.
Yeah.
If you've never changed and never grown from where you were.
Yeah.
So
we got another voicemail?
Sure do.
Hey, Chelsea and Brandon. I just wanted to call to talk about kind of the final straw for me of leaving the church. So the church that I was serving, I served on a committee that wanted to address how to like grow our youth programs and young adult programs to make them feel more welcome and accepted, and to really like expand those ministries. And I was invited by another committee member to attend his Sunday school, where he was going to be talking about empathizing with young people. So I was like really excited and hopeful, and was really blessed that he invited me to that. So I went, and he started off talking about empathizing with young people, but then proceeded to go into talking about how the gay agenda was corrupting their children and their grandchildren, and talking about how young people were becoming anti-police and wanted to live in just a lawless society. And he talked about deconstructing and how progressive Christianity was out to get their children and grandchildren. And so it very quickly turned into not empathizing with young people at all. And it was just a ton of fear mongering for these parents and grandparents. And I just couldn't believe where I was. Like, I was like looking around, I'm like, I'm at church, but this sounds like I'm listening to Tucker Carlson. So that was the moment for me that I realized after 2 years of just being really frustrated because I wasn't allowed to lead an anti-racist Bible study. I was told no for 2 years. That people were being given platforms and were allowed to use their voices to talk about what they wanted to talk about. They didn't have to turn in notes, didn't have to turn in sermon notes. There just wasn't any accountability, but I was being silenced. So for me, that was just kind of where I realized the road ended, and it was time to leave. So anyways, thanks for listening.
It's the gays.
Oh my gosh.
It's the gays. They're after
Chelsea,
your grandkids.
would you actually, for this next segment, give us an update on the gay agenda for our community?
The gay agenda is currently after
Can we get a gavel?
After all of your grandchildren. That's it.
Can we get a gavel and have a segment where you fill us in? Some of us straight people need to be filled in on the gay agenda. I can't attend the meetings. They don't let me in. I need to know.
I got you. We are after all of your kids, all of your grandkids. Watch your wives. We're after them all.
Get your umbrella in case the rainbow comes splashing upon you.
And be prepared to take it back, because the gays have taken it from all of the Christians.
Oh God, I forgot about that. They have.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's so funny that she mentioned, because I just texted you about this the other day. We haven't even talked about it yet.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of accountability for all these random ass people in your church that lead all these Bible studies and like teach all these Sunday schools.
Right.
Some of them we've both, and I can think of a specific woman right now, and I love her kids too, but who taught you Sunday school that you loved. You had a great, So a lot of Sunday school teachers, I know people have great experience with. I'm not talking about all, but there are so many people when I look back to my church experience that I'm like, what in the Charlie's Angels did you ever have the audacity to ever be teaching anyone anything? Like, what? I'm just, it shakes me up.
And it's wild because like who is diving into these things with the qualifications?
Right.
Who says, yeah, we need to really talk about progressive Christianity?
Right. And then your agenda to talking about, and remember when this caller said they were invited to this conversation.
Yeah. So
that, I think that's important. Like they didn't just show up. They didn't just come to a meeting. They were invited to come to a meeting to empathize with young people.
Yeah.
And understand progressive Christianity a little bit better, get a better idea.
You're right.
And then the grandpa, I'm assuming old white male, because she did say grandpa.
That sounds like the one.
So yeah. So then you put your agenda together and you put gays, and liberals and Black Lives Matter. Like, it's just interesting that that's the agenda you put together, when if you had a clue, that really isn't the issues that the church has.
And it sounds like the goal was to empathize,
right?
To listen to young people,
not to attack,
and to try to understand.
Right.
But instead, it was, I'm gonna tell you what you need to understand.
Yeah. And it's also just a reminder that the church needs so many lessons in empathy.
Yep.
Like, I can't even imagine where we would be as religious dropouts 4 years ago, as just humans.
Yeah.
If 10% if even just 10% of the people that we talk about and 10% of the people that you talk about had any ounce of empathy.
Yeah.
Any.
We'd have 7-8 less stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sat with a woman today who said, speaking of the gay agenda, she said to me, I feel like empathy, we were talking about empathy a little bit in the church, is it feels like Christians never understand it until it happens to them. So basically, like, they never have empathy until all of a sudden their kid comes out and he's gay. Or they never have empathy until all of a sudden their black brother or sister was actually targeted and a victim of racism when they never seen racism before. All these things, right? And it's just like one of those things where how sad is it that we worship a God, you and I, that we know it is the only reason we understand empathy is from God. Like, literally the creator of that, of how we understand empathy is from God. Yet all of these Christians and all these pastors have such an inability to access even this much of it. And it's just devastating. It's just so sad.
I want to say, if you connect with any of these stories that we're talking about in this episode, these voices that you hear are real people. These messages that we're reading are real people. If you aren't joined into our Facebook group that we sarcastically or maybe genuinely call
both
Dropouts and Delinquents,
because we're both,
I think it's just a little snarky. We get to grin a little bit and laugh when we think about it affectionately. We're really trying to put together a group of people that often feel lonely and isolated. And we're trying to bring people that with commonality together. So that'd be a sweet way to
connect with us and connect with each other. And I think our dream in there would be to create like a space where we can get together, we can meet, we can hang out, we can have Zoom calls, we can do
private.
Like, just, you know,
we're vetting the people that come in there. We really
sure are.
We really are trying to make sure it's safe. If there are rules, if somebody was acting up and whiling in the group, like, we definitely kick them out.
We're pretty persistent in there of checking up on things, but yeah, we'd love to have you there. As we close tonight, Brandon, any last thoughts? I have something I wanted to read, but I wanted to make sure if there was anything else you were thinking.
I think that's it. These are hard stories.
Really hard, yeah.
And I think we've been in a little bit of a laughy mood tonight. So I don't want anybody to think we don't take their story serious. If you don't laugh, you cry. I think we often say that.
We do both, actually, off camera as well. No.
Yeah, we do both. We laugh and cry. But I think I just want people to know that there's a place for them. And if they relate with any of this, the questions, the isolation, the not feeling their place, I just would want them to know that we feel the loneliness too. It comes in waves. Even though we're leading this podcast, I can tell you there might be a drive home where I'm like feeling alone in these questions.
And I'm not in church. So I know you and Jackie are looking, and I know you were with Sycamore. Obviously, thank God, because it's one of our sponsors right now. But I'm not in church. I was preaching once a month at Oaks for a while. I'm not doing that right now. And I struggle, you guys. Like, if we shared our story, I think it was like episode 10 where we talked about like what are our feelings that now that we're gone, and some of those feelings they weren't just hope and joy and peace. That was a part of it. But like one of our callers I could really connect with, she actually messaged me personally and said, can you please only play my one voicemail? I didn't realize there was two. And when I realized what she was asking, it was because in the first one she broke down and was crying. And so she had to redo it. And I don't know that I've related with a caller more than that yet. Is that feeling of like, we try to tell our stories and sometimes it's just like, as much as it feels like we're on the other side of it, we're still living it. And it's still affecting our families and our friendships and our faith even at some points. And so I echo everything that Brandon said. And especially when he said that we're in it with you, like we would never be sharing on this podcast or sharing your stories or ever trying to speak to you if this wasn't the life that we live every single day. So this is my one of my sweet friends sent this to me, and I didn't ask permission to share her name, but she is her and her wife volunteer for the homeless organization that I work for, and they are incredible. And she sent this to me today. She said that she felt like I could really connect to it and that people on the podcast would really connect to it. And I am so blessed to be able to share it with you. God, you saw me walk away. I had to. For what was supposed to have been a refuge, a community of hope, purpose, mutual encouragement, distorted all I understood for you to be. Oh God, lead me to the heart of love so that I might find the healing that I need and protect the reverence that I have for you.
Mhm.
For you do not consume, but rather you feed. You do not destroy, but rather build up. You do not abandon your little ones, but insist that they belong in your arms. Enfolded here, I see you now, the God who loves us to the end. For though I walked away, you didn't. You found me and will lead me. Let's now find others.
So we would love it if you would help us in the mission of finding others.
Let's go there together.
Definitely.
We love you, dropouts.
Love you guys. Bye. Hey, my friends, if you've been listening to this podcast and you've heard the stories of our callers, you've heard the stories of Chelsea and I, and you've resonated with any bits of those pains, those hurts, those struggles with the church and community, and you feel alone or isolated, we would love to bring you into the Dropouts and Delinquents Facebook group.
You can find it in the link in our bio on our Instagram or our Facebook. And really, this group is more of a secret society. It's protected, right?
For sure.
So whatever you share in this group is confidential.
Yep.
It stays in the group. And we even ask some pretty funny security questions for you to even get into the group. So rest assured, everything you share there is private. We'd love to meet you there in community and just figure out more about each other and have a place where we can just share and connect.
Let's not do this alone, dropouts. Meet us there.
Hey fam, thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Religious Dropouts podcast. We hope it gave you a space to breathe, to laugh, and connect. It's our hope that as you journey along with us, that you too might find yourself saying, damn, it feels good to be a dropout. Be sure to check out our show notes for links to anything mentioned in this episode, including ways to connect with us on social media. We'd also love for you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone you know who might want to join our community. You are loved. Have a great week.